Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derek Williams, and I'm excited to be with you today. I'm going to be honest right from the beginning. I'm being a little bit selfish with this episode, but I think that it may serve a lot of you as well if you're thinking about becoming a TLP client, specifically with coaching. I'm creating this episode because I have quite a few conversations with people each month, each year that are considering working with myself or Matt and Steve with one-on-one coaching. And a lot of the conversation is pretty similar one to another. So I'm creating this episode to answer most of the questions that I get during these phone calls or consultations so that there's a place for me to send people to go and listen to this before we have kind of that introductory call. And it may be helpful for those of you that are considering this or have considered it in the past to give a little bit of an inside look. What is that conversation like? What are some of the things that I share? So I'm going to be upfront on quite a few of those things, and I hope that it's beneficial. But if you're not considering or you have no interest in becoming a client of TLP or knowing about what our one-on-one coaching is like and why it's so good, then you can just skip this episode. So the first question that I am going to answer right out of the gate is the top one, the most frequently asked one, and it has to do with the cost. We update our fees relatively frequently based on the demand, the growth, inflation, all of the same things that you guys are using to kind of determine your fees in your practice. So basically, you're just going to have to reach out and ask at that time point. But I will basically tell you that it's in the ballpark of about $3,000 to $4,000 or $5,000 a month is what you're going to be investing in a one-on-one coaching relationship. The second question is, how do I decide if it's worth the fee? What are the returns that a lot of dentists get? And when we analyze the numbers and look at things over the years, we find that it's about, on average, we see our clients in the first year increase their production and collections by somewhere around, on average, 30 to 35%. So you can basically look at, how much has your practice been doing, or even if you're going to purchase a practice, what are the fees that they've been collecting and producing, add 30 to 35% on top of that, and then basically calculate your ROI, and is one way that you can kind of help decide and determine if it is worth the fee. The other aspect that I will point out here is that I was able to reach financial independence by age 35 from my practice, 7 years in clinical dentistry, and be able to walk away from chairside dentistry. Pretty much all of us at TLP are in that same boat. So we are not coaches in the sense that we make our money from coaching. We are coaches that primarily have been dentists and have done dentistry successfully. We've owned our own practices. We've learned this stuff, and we are also coaches and have been able to help a lot of clients and dentists to be able to reach financial independence and to grow significantly as well. So at the end of the day, you're the only one that can determine if the investment is worth it to you. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea as far as the cost and what that investment looks like. The next question that I'm going to answer that I hear a lot is, when is the right time? When should I do coaching? When is the best time? Here's an example. I have a client that I'm working with right now. We started 3 months ago. And initially when he reached out, he said, I'm thinking that I want to get this and this knocked out of the way before I start coaching so that then I can really focus. And, I've got these kind of hurdles to get over before I want to start coaching. What do you think? And I said, look, it's totally up to you. But in my opinion, if we can start coaching and work through those huddles together, you're going to get through them faster and you're going to start accelerating at an earlier rate, an earlier time frame than if you wait until later. Totally up to you. And after our very first call, I followed up a few weeks later and he said, I'm so glad that that I listened to you and I started coaching earlier, because I wouldn't have been able to navigate these challenges and these hurdles in the same way if we hadn't been working together. So when is the right time? I mean, there's definitely certain things that can hinder things. I think in general, we want you to be an owner or very close to ownership. For the most part, what I have told people is, maybe reach out. It's good to have some connection and to be able to talk about potential practices or something like that. But generally, like to start coaching and working together, I would like you to have an LOI in place with a closing date where we can start coaching. We'll put the coaching fees on pause until you close, but I think that's a good time frame as far as that goes. But I have coached some associates in the past, but in general, our coaching makes the most sense when you own a practice. When I have coached associates, we have seen the ROI be there as far as increasing their production and compensation. But there's just a lot of things that are out of your control as an associate that make it a little bit more difficult to make the numbers work long term. Initially we are working together and coaching to build a really strong foundation so that this year you're getting a good ROI, and next year the ROI is still there, and the year after that, for years to come, you're putting a foundation in place so that the rate that you're accelerating, that you're going to be in a much better place 5 years from now versus if you had not coached with us or had delayed the coaching process. So in general, I would say if you want to practice, when's the right time? Now or yesterday. But then that leads me to the next question is, how do I know if TLP is right for me? Because that's a separate question. The timing is a separate issue. How do I know if TLP is right for me? Because it is not right for everyone. I will say that from the get-go. There are definitely times that I have worked with someone where our expectations were not on the same page from the get-go, and it hasn't gone well, which is fine. I've learned things from it. That person learned things from it. We weren't a good fit. And it's led to me being a better coach from the get-go and being able to talk to people and understand, okay, this is where we're not a good fit for each other. And I recommend that you look at, this group, or keep looking, because we're not the right fit for you. So what kinds of things can you ask yourself? Like, what would some of those things be that would mean that we are not the right fit? I would say the number one thing, which you've likely heard this if you listen to the podcast, but the number one thing is, if you are looking for a very hands-on consultant type of a person to come in, be live in your practice with you, with your team, and to tell you what protocols to put in place, and to say, here's my binder, here's what I think that you should do, and to lead your team, we're not a good fit. There are plenty of consultants that do that you can find. So if that is what you're looking for, then yeah, you probably want to pass on working with us at this point. Why? Because at TLP, we don't focus on that type of approach. The dentists that we want to work with are the dentists that come in and are hungry. They're ready to take ownership for their practices. They want to step up their leadership. They want to help take their practice and their team to the next level. They're looking for guidance, looking for a strategic partner. We are dentists. We've been there, we've done it. And so we're working with you in that mindset. Where I'm not coming in to do it for you. I'm a second set of eyes. I'm another brain. I'm a mentor that's in place where we can look at things together, and I can ask you questions. We can evaluate together, and we can develop a plan. We can look at it and evaluate it and say, okay, here's the next steps. Here's what we need to do this month. That's the type of relationship that we are going to do very, very well together. And I remember this for myself. And like, when I have coaches in place, I'm basically going into it with the mentality of like, dude, I am ready to work. You point me in the right direction. You help me know where to go, and I will work my tail off making progress and getting that direction. We are going to hold your feet to the fire. We are going to provide accountability. I'm going to give you a list of things to do and to work on, and I'm going to check in with you. So accountability is a big one. So you can be assured that that's going to happen. The next question that I want to answer is, oh yeah, I get this question a lot. How often can I reach out? How often can we work together? A lot of times in the beginning of coaching, there is a little bit more interaction that's required. We're kind of setting the foundation. There's more moving parts. And so there's a little bit more interaction, I would say, in like the first few months. And then after a while, it kind of tapers off a little bit and kind of like settles at this point where I would say what that looks like is essentially we have a monthly call and then we have checkpoints in between, uh, text, email, hop on a call if there's something pressing that you need. But for the most part, we're having monthly calls. We're reviewing the progress of the last month, setting goals for the new month, and then having touch points in between that. So that in general is kind of how much interaction we're going to have. The next question that I want to answer is, what is the focus? In general, I would say the biggest areas of focus, number one is financial. We focus heavily on financial goals. From the very first call, we will evaluate what are your financial goals, what is the progress that you've made so far, and then we'll kind of break things down. We're going to look at goals for the year, and then we're going to break that down into monthly and then daily. We also, obviously, we are called the lifestyle practice. We want to look at what do you want as far as your lifestyle to look like. We don't want to focus just on financial goals. A big part of that is what do you want your life to look like on a daily and weekly basis? How many vacations per year do you want to take? How many days a week do you want to work? By looking at all of that information and looking at your goals together, we can kind of define what that looks like. A big part of this comes down to leadership. So a lot of times we will put those big goals in place, and over time we will turn over rocks as far as what are your strengths and weaknesses as far as leadership. How motivated is your team? And how can we motivate your team? We talk through things as far as having better communication, better training. If there's CE that we want to take as a team, putting a bonus structure in place. But your practice cannot surpass your ability to lead. In my opinion, this is probably the greatest strength of TLP. Is each of us has focused a significant amount of our time and energy on becoming exceptional leaders in our own practices and helping our clients to do the same. So I would say those are the biggest areas, financial, lifestyle, and leadership. The next question is, what does it look like? If we were going to get started, what would things look like? So essentially, reach out. You let me know that you're ready, or any of us. I share our emails every podcast episode, Matt, Derek, or Steve at thelifestylepractice.com. My name is spelled DEREK, not DERRICK, or any of those other weird ways to spell Derek. So you can reach out that way, and we can have an introductory call. We can talk through any questions that you have. If you already understand all of these things and you're ready to go, essentially, I'm going to send you the link to make the first payment and documents to get started working on. And then after that, we will set up our first meeting where we will go through all of the documents. The documents entail your vision, your why, your goals. There's quite a bit of information about your practice to help us get a really good idea of where your practice is currently at. And then at that point, we'll set up our first call, and we go through all of this information. My goal on that first call is to get as crystal clear as possible as I can in understanding you, the way you see the world, the way that you see your practice, and your current performance of your practice, and then looking at what are the greatest areas of impact we can have in your practice. And we're generally going to come away from that first call with our blueprint for how we're going to focus our time together. And then there's action items. So that first call, I always, and I think Matt and Steve do the same thing, always after every call, I take notes. And then after the call, I send an email with basically kind of like a layout of my notes. It's very common for even something like, when we're talking through case presentation, for me to kind of say, well, this is how I explain it. And the client will say, oh man, that was so good. Can can you write that out in the email? And yeah, I'm make a note of it in the email, script it out. So I am happy to do that, and I feel like that is a really good use of our communication. And from there, we are working, like I said, in between. We'll have that main monthly call. Here's our plan of action, all of our action items. You basically go to work at that point. Start working on those things, get them done. If you can work through those things quickly, man, I'm all for, let's set another call ASAP. Let's keep going. Let's keep making progress. What I don't want to see is a lack of action or a lack of communication. There's a couple things that I always talk through on my first call with each client, and I talk about a couple different things. One is I ask everyone, please be honest with me. Please be open and transparent. It is not my goal as your coach to get you to agree with everything that I say or to get you to do what I think you should do. My goal is basically to just present you with the options that I feel like are a good fit and are a good direction to go, and then to help you make the best decision for you. I don't want you to commit to something that you're not totally on board with, and then the next time I check in with you, you say, I haven't really made progress. I was thinking more and I don't really feel good about this. If you are not confident, I want you to, during the call, say, you know what, Derek, I'm not sure about this, or I don't feel good about this. Let's talk through it. I want to be on the same page as you. The second area is to communicate in between. If you find yourself getting focused on something else, or something comes up and you feel like you have to pivot and go a different direction and not able to focus on the things that we discussed in our call, let me know. I have no problem. I know what it's like to own a practice. I know what things come up. So I have no problem with that. But I want to be your strategic partner. I want to be kept in the loop. So when things come up, reach out, let me know. Let's get back on the same page. I want to stay synced up with you as far as what the direction is. What the focus is going to be. Ultimately, we end up making a lot more headway when we can do that, when we can work well together. The last question that I want to answer kind of ties everything together, and it's, why does this work so well? And some of these things I've already covered, but number one is, I would say, because we weed out people that are not really willing to put in the work. If you're expecting us to come in and hold your hand and lead and guide your practice for you, we're not going to be a good fit. So we tend to work with clients that are very self-motivated, that are ready to go, where we are viewed as a strategic partner. We can work really, really well together. We can provide the accountability. We can provide the guidance, the goal setting, those types of things. The other reason why I think we are such a good fit long-term is because there are so many times that I work with a client and the client's staff have no idea that they are working with a coach or a consultant. And I have no problem. I'm totally fine with, you taking the initiative and deciding how you want to talk about it with your staff. It's totally fine to just say, look, I am stepping up my leadership. I have fallen short in these ways, and here's how I'm going to be better this year. Something like along those lines. Or you can say, I'm working with a coach and they're holding me accountable. Here's where I'm going to make efforts and focus. And then at times, if you don't know the answer, you can say, you know what? That's a great question. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask my coach. That's a great way. But what I'm getting at is that one of the greatest things about working with us is that we employ the principle of teaching a man to fish, not giving him a fish. So when we work together, I'm not coming in and doing it for you. So after the time that we are done working together, you're the one that has made all the progress. You're the one that has made things work and taken your practice to the next level. So you take me out of the picture, you can keep going. You've been the one that has done the hard work. And so you can reap the rewards for years to come. And that's one of my favorite things about TLP is following up with clients years later and hearing about the success and how well things are going. So in that regard, we also provide good options as far as kind of scaling back over time. Usually at the end of our time working together, we can continue working monthly, or a lot of times what I find is that clients really like the idea of going to something like, instead of monthly coaching, we do quarterly coaching, where we're able to still have interaction, still have accountability, but it's a little bit scaled back. It allows you to kind of transition into doing more on your own. And I have some clients that love that and just never want to stop quarterly, and we go on for a long time, and others that are ready. And the great thing that I love is there's no pressure. There's no pressure to make any specific option work. We're just here to provide these options for you and help you find what works best for you. So thank you for listening. I feel like that was a mouthful. It's a lot of different information, but hopefully that's helpful if you're thinking about working with myself or Matt and Steve. And ultimately, I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for my opportunity to be a coach. I'm grateful for those of you that are listeners and supportive of our podcast and the ideas that we represent. So take care, everyone. Keep crushing it, whether you work with us or not. Although I am heavily biased, and I think those that work with us get better results than those that don't by far. And in my opinion, there's just no other investment that compares as far as ROI. I get that experience every time I hire a coach, and I see the same thing with my clients. So take care, everyone. Look forward to hearing from you and working with you in the future.